Almost without exception, the couples I talked to say that at one time in their marriage, they really knew each other or were at least on the right track to deepening their knowledge of each other. When they kept growing together, something changed. It probably doesn't happen all at once, but gradually. One day they were too busy to recognize the touchpoint opportunities in front of them. There were more and more days without a touchpoint than there were days with touchpoints. And finally, one or both of them looked up and realized they were just living together. They'd become two roommates. They may or may not have been fighting, but they definitely didn't know each other, not the way they used to. Enter Liam and Madison. You know, we all know that we have expectations in our marriages. We have talked about not sharing expectations with each other and how detrimental that can be in a marriage. We get in a pattern of being disappointed or at times angry with our spouse or not meeting the expectations that we have of them. So whether we've communicated them or not, it doesn't seem to matter. For Liam and Madison, none of the above fit them at all. Liam, well, he came from a really good home, as society would define it. His parents had married young. They stayed married. It's something that you kind of get bonus points for today. His dad was president of his company. He'd worked hard to attain that role. His mom stayed at home with the kids and was very involved in social things and volunteer activities. Liam heard the words, "You have such a wonderful family," more times than he could count, and he believed every single word of it. Liam came into marriage wanting a marriage just like his parents, and no one would really have argued that point with him. If we could become invisible and spend a week in Liam's parents' home, what do you think we'd see? We would see a husband and wife who were very nice to each other. They never argued. They had their own interests, but they had none in common. The house was quiet, it was peaceful, and primarily because there was no talking. Touch points came and went each day as they had for years without anyone grabbing onto them. So Liam came into marriage without one single expectation of knowing Madison any better in the future than he did on their wedding day. Madison, well, she grew up as an only child in a single-parent home. She never met her dad. And as great as Madison's mom was, there was no modeling of what marriage was supposed to look like. So as she entered marriage, it seemed only right that they modeled their marriage after Liam's parents because it seemed like it was so perfect. So what we have here is a recipe for a long-term marriage between two strangers, and that is exactly what I saw in them when they sat in my office after 8 years of marriage. Madison made the appointment, and Liam came willingly with no idea why they were even seeing a counselor. Madison had difficulty expressing why we're there too, and she said, "I just think there should be something more in our marriage." The easy part in counseling them was that they didn't bring any marriage-damaging baggage with them. They never fought. They were so nice to each other. My role was to get them to see that they were missing touch points every day that could take their marriage to a new level. A level they never even knew could exist. Well, Madison was all in, and Liam was too, even though he thought he couldn't see how things could get any better than they already were. So all I asked them to do that first week was to identify touchpoint opportunities and write them down. So the next time I saw them, Madison had a very long list. Liam's was considerably shorter, but at least he made the effort. The next step was to begin taking advantage of those opportunities. So here's some of the touch points they began to take advantage of. When they both arrived home in the evenings, they would usually greet each other and then go their separate ways. Now they sat down together and they talked about their day. When Madison had an errand to run and Liam was home, she invited him to go with her, and he did. On the ride home from church, they discussed the sermon note questions in the bulletin. They were in the habit of not eating dinner together, and each would eat really when they were hungry or had time. Now they were intentional about eating dinner together without any other distractions. They already prayed together as husband and wife, but not very often, and it was sporadic. So each night at bedtime, they began to share concerns, and they prayed silently together. They also committed to go to bed at the same time. Their sex life was erratic and would have long lapses between occurrences. They committed to be much more intentional about it, and going to bed together was going to be a big step in the right direction. Well, the next time I saw him, I could hardly get Liam to stop talking so I could hear from Madison. He loved what was happening in their marriage. He said, "I really think that I'm getting to know Madison in ways I never did before." Over the next few months, I saw incredible growth in their marriage. They were finding new touch points every single week, and they were beginning to know each other in ways that bonded them closer and closer to each other. The days of being strangers in the same house was over. So what did you identify with in Liam and Madison's story? Are there touch points you can identify and begin taking advantage of together? What if you added one new touch point to your marriage every week for a month? God certainly desires for us to know Him more and at more intimate levels and to grow in a relationship with Him. He desires the same of the two of you in your marriage.